Welcome to RGBA, colorful tech news and reviews. This is episode 50, the big 5-0. My name is Alexandre Valliere-Lagacé, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tyler Ménard.
So to start the week, we have follow-up from our last show. Friend of the show, Tristan, he texted me after listening to the show last week when we talked about Alcantara and how it get used very quickly and all that. It was referring to the new Microsoft Surface, and he has Alcantara on his seats, and he was telling me he has 115,000 kilometers and his seats are still perfect. And I went outside to check to do my good investigation, and he's correct. The seats are still fine. So I guess there's just different grades of Alcantara, and the ones I saw before are more like performance oriented, and they're more grippy and they get used faster or something. But it's durable.
Yeah, like you mentioned, sometimes they're used on the wheels to get better grip, and it's probably, like you said, it's probably not the same quality that we have on our headsets, because or maybe it's hair gel that gets in the way. I don't know. But my Alcantara and my Bose QC35 is not the most pristine textile I have on my devices right now. So
yeah, the ones I saw before are all like race applications, I think. So I guess they're more grippy. And also another point I forgot, the drivers usually have gloves, so that are very sticky also. So it might like both work together to make it really, really shed fast and look ugly after a couple 100 miles.
Yeah. Okay. I also have follow-up on the same subject. I had a loaner vehicle from my dealer, which is a 2011 Lexus RX 330. No, sorry, it was the big one, the 440H or something like that. Whatever, the big one that's hybrid. And it also had like Alcantara here and there, and it is still pretty nice, especially since it's a loaner vehicle that the garage loans to everybody, and people usually don't take care of that. If I look at the leather they have, it's pretty beat up. So, and the Alcantara was still pretty nice. Of course, it was a roof. It was not like the seats or not anything, but still, usually you can see where people actually put their hands often, and there was no apparent dirt or stuff like that. So it's more promising in cars. Let's hope that for this device, they actually use the same one, and hopefully not the same one that they used a while back on the keyboard for the Surface Pro 4. That was already dirty on Reddit, as we explained. So, yeah, let's keep our fingers crushed. Crushed your fingers. Okay, here's the show title right there. So that's nice. 3 minutes in the show and you have a title. That's nice. All right, so following up on another subject, Facebook, the size of the binaries that you download when you install on iOS is still growing. I think we will report this for every show from now on. The last update I did yesterday was 370 megs, so that's a big, almost 400 megs of I don't know what. Probably, like we said, duplicated data, weird frameworks, and all that crap. So yeah, almost 400 megs for an iOS app. And following up on the Surface discussion we had, people were asking Microsoft if there was a Surface Pro 5 that will be eventually launched, because now they have a new Surface laptop. The Surface Pro 4 is getting older, and people are wondering, should I wait for the new Surface Pro 5 or not? And Microsoft VP Panos Panay recently said that there was no such thing as a Surface Pro 5, that there was nothing in the plans and whatever. And what do we learn this week? We actually have a leak from EV-Links. Basically, these are like press shots of an Surface Pro 5 with no USB-C, still USB-A, and a display port. And I think it also has the same Alcantara keyboard, just to make a full circle with our previous follow-up. And a new pen, I think. So basically, yeah, Surface Pro 5 is a thing, and it's going to be coming eventually as soon as Microsoft is ready, but this is something that exists. So yeah, don't lie. So about like almost 2 weeks ago, we had a former iPhone factory worker explain how Apple and their the way that they actually keep the secrets in the factories. They have basically like a bunch of steps that they actually do to make sure that the workers do not steal parts or complete phones or whatever. Basically, he explained that whenever they were assembling the new iPhone, that was in the days of the iPhone 6S when they were starting to work on the iPhone 7. They actually had like special curtains around a section of the factory where the tables for the iPhone 7 were while they were still assembling the iPhone 6S. So they knew that this was the next model and only very specific people had access to behind those curtains and could work on the first, I guess, maybe the DVT models, the design verification test, or maybe even from the first production units. That's where it happened. And then also once that was done, then it was they moved everyone to a separate building to continue working on the iPhone 6S while that main building was upgraded for the iPhone 7. And then 2 or 3 days later, they came back and they were explained that now the iPhone 6S, you stopped working on that and now you work on the iPhone 7. So, and also they have a bunch of policies like you're not allowed to bring any electronics into the workplace. And if you ever have metal on yourself, you will be basically like prevented from entering your workplace. So even women with their bras, they had to purchase a special bras with only plastic so that the metal detector could detect like very small, like a few millimeters in size piece of metal. So that if you ever were beeping when you were trying to get in or out, you were in big trouble. So going in is not too bad. You just go back home and change. But if you were trying to get out and you were beeping, then you were probably submitted to a full body search, like they often do in the movies.
Apparently, he's an NYU grad student, and he spent 6 weeks undercover at this iPhone factory in Shanghai.
Oh, nice. Okay, nice.
And it was part of his dissertation for his PhD.
That's original.
Yeah, that's quite out there.
It reminds me of the guy that assembled his own iPhone 6S in China. Did you saw this come by a few months ago?
No.
He's a web developer like us who worked at different companies like Google, and he's now, I think, the CTO of a startup. And he had to go to China like regularly. And one day he said, can I create my very own iPhone from parts on the electronic little stores and merchants all around town? So basically he started like that. He said, okay, let me find a back case. That's easy to do. Then he tried to find a blank PCB, so the motherboard of the iPhone. And then he started to purchase all the little components to solder them on the board. Then after a while, he realized that this was quite something because of the miniature size of all those chips. It's not something you can easily do. So he went to an assembling or electronics engineering department at some university in China. And I think it's in Shenzhen. And basically the teacher there says, you could do it. Like it's possible to do it. But you need like a bunch of specialized tools and you need lots of practice before you're able to properly align all the little chips and make nice micro soldiers. And so, yeah. So basically he abandoned the idea of making his own PCB and he purchased one that was already pre-made in the streets. But then he had to hunt for all the buttons, the home button, all the screws, all microphone, ports and everything, battery and the screen. So that he hunted for all those parts one by one. And then he assembled them. He was missing the little plastic thing on the buttons that made them click. So he had to go back and try to explain to the sellers, like, there's something missing. It doesn't click. And then they say, oh, yeah, you need this little piece of plastic. And then they take out the little slide. And then for the screen, that was the hardest part because the screen is the LCD, the backlight, the LCD, digitizer, and glass. So, and these all come in separate parts. So what you have to do is you have to basically install them in a sandwich kind of way. and make sure there's no bubbles in anything. So he resorted to go to a little merchant who was installed below a staircase in a very small corner of the market, where they actually were able to remove the adhesive, put new adhesive, and like sandwich it together. And then once it was all aligned, they put it in some kind of like a oven that actually makes a vacuum. So all the air bubble would be pumped out. And so they did. And then after that, he tested the screen and it was working. So that's how he got his screen, basically. He got all the parts, and then this guy there assembled it for him. And finally, he managed to get all the screws, and using a very precise tool, he measured all the screws to be sure that which screws goes into which hole. And he finally got it to work. So he managed to do it. So I'll put the links in the show notes. He did a whole vlog episode on this. And it was pretty impressive that you could go from nothing all the way to a functioning iPhone 6S without any major problem, I would say, if you know what you're looking for.
But then how does he install iOS?
You know, that part, he basically left it out. So I'm guessing that because the motherboard was probably pre-installed. It was probably boards from used iPhone.
Maybe, yeah. Because when you install iOS, it phones back home and to make sure it's an iPhone, no?
Yeah, but the board is probably legit.
Right. Or jailbroken or something, if he's able to bypass that, but usually...
Yeah, the only part that he did not mention, and I was wondering from the start, is the home button and the Touch ID. Did he get this to work? I'm pretty sure he did not, but
because a lot of people were having problems with that when they tried to change the front panel on the red iPhone 7.
Yep, because the home button is linked to the motherboard, and if you change the home button or the screen, if you change the home button and then there's a mismatch when they try to communicate, then the Touch ID will stop to work. So... All right, so moving on to our little rumors section. We basically have a few rumors. The first one has been with us for a couple of months, if not years. The Apple Echo equivalent rumor, the Siri in a cylinder speaker. This time is Ming Chi Kuo who discusses that. The supposed device should be very similar to a Mac Pro-like concave design. So imagine a smaller, probably taller cylinder to sit on your desk with a Siri in a can. So that's pretty nice. Looking at what Amazon did recently with the Echo Dot, Echo Look, Echo Show. I don't know what other word they're going to use, but they should probably change the branding because it's getting confusing. Everything is there for to confuse you with show, look, and everything. The Look is the one that takes selfies of you and comments on your fashion. The Echo Show is the iPad on your counter with speakers and microphones. So you can basically visualize a request like, hey, lady in a can, show me videos of whatever. And then you can tell her, like, show me the third one. And then it's going to play. So you can watch YouTube like that. You can also drop in on your relatives and friends by video conference. You can even, like, the drop-in feature is actually like you physically drop in, like, not physically, but you actually drop in, so they don't need to respond. You're already connected right away. So you do need to have some discussion about where you place your Echo Show so you don't stumble into privacy of your friends or family members. So that makes sense, like that Apple would like to do that. They did the speakers in the past, the big iPod hi-fi stereo, which was pretty nice and had decent sound. A while back, there were some rumors that they were in talks with Sonos, probably to do something similar. I know Sonos, as president or CEO, whatever, he mentioned that he had personal issues in his life that prevented him from being focused on Sonos for a while, and that's why they're late to the game. Maybe they're going to release something with voice eventually. They already have the speaker technology, and the quality is there, so that's not a problem. It's just that they need to get that voice recognition thing in place, or maybe use the Amazon services for that. I don't know. What do you think about that, should Apple release a cylinder.
Also, we forgot to add, Phil Schiller was interviewed, and he implied that the voice, if they ever release a voice assistant, it needs a screen, like the Amazon Show. Yeah, Show's the one that's like an iPad.
Yeah, you're right. He did some in-faces on that. A screen is required, and voice is not sufficient.
The only thing I'm not nervous, but if they put a screen on it, it's going to be so expensive. Because how much is an Echo? $149, I think. It's a cheap device.
Yeah.
But if they ship it with a screen, it's going to make it like $400 or $500, and the barrier to entry is a lot smaller. And I don't know.
Yeah. Also, the way that Amazon did it is that they made the Echo Dot so that you can have a cheaper version of it, like around your house, especially for places where your voice cannot be heard by the cylinder, which from all accounts is pretty amazing. But still, some rooms, maybe if you change level on your house, that's probably when it doesn't work. So you can get those little dots thing. But if Apple, like you said, brings out like an iPad on the stool, that's not gonna be cheap. $300, yeah, that would be like the very minimum, like $299. And then what happens if you want like a second one, like for, I don't know, for your office? Yeah, it's another $400, $300. It's
because technically it might be even more expensive than an iPad, because it's an iPad plus supposedly good speakers, good microphones. But yeah, maybe because it's smaller, like they don't have to make it as small as an iPad, so it might cost less. I don't know how this works, but it's the only thing that makes me nervous. It's going to be so expensive if they ship it with a screen.
Yeah, unless, well, if the interactions you have are basically touch, and then it displays you some whatever YouTube videos and maybe a few texts here and there, you don't need the same power as you have in an iPad. So you could get like a basic A5, A6X kind of CPU from like old iPads, and it would be sufficient for what it needs to do, because you don't need to run apps. You don't need, well, we don't know. Maybe Apple will try to sell you apps also for that. So it's not just a voice controlled thingy, but it's also a touch screen and apps enabled device. Yeah, so that would make sense for them, but they need to find a way to make that cheaper, because at $200, $300, it's getting on the high end. And unless they try to cram in more features like super high quality speakers like the Sonos, then I would see that if I spent $200 for Sonos Play ones, I could spend $200 on a Siri speaker with like added functionality, like a good speaker. So that could work. I'm also, in the back of my head, I still have the like idea that Airport Express devices kind of could become like a mesh network and be the new Airport Extreme / Express setup, where you would have maybe a main cylinder in your house, which would be your Apple Extreme, and then you would have Airport Express around the house with also speakers and voice recognition, so you can mesh your whole house and also mesh the voice network of your house. So, but I don't know if that's gonna be the way to go. I'm maybe imagining things now.
So the Apple Watch is really regarded as a health device now, I think, or they're trying to push a lot of the health features of the Apple Watch with the new activities and all that. And a study came out with reporting that the Apple Watch is very accurate when detecting abnormal heart rhythms with the iPhone, with the watch. So they were reporting 97% accuracy. So that's pretty interesting if they can start to monitor your heart over time and then like send not the alerts but notifications and say, hey, this patient, send them to your doctor, like this is in big database, and start targeting people that might have abnormal heart activity.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We already heard about a kid who had an heart problem that was undiagnosed, and he, after, I don't know, I think he did like a whole day of lacrosse sport and something like that. And at the end of the day, he took a nap, and then he woke up like an hour or two later, and his Apple Watch was still reporting that his heart rate was like in the high 180, 190. So he went to the hospital, and that basically saved his life, because he was, if he was ever to like eat supper and then go to sleep for the night, he probably would have never woken up after that, because his heart was failing. And the Apple Watch he had on his wrist saved his life, because he could see. I don't know if it was probably not an activity, but it was probably have like a complication with his heartbeat, and he saw that the number was still very high, probably tapped it and may make a new scan of his heartbeat and realized that there was a problem. So I'm not surprised that this little device is pretty accurate. What I'm hoping is that we will eventually get the Apple Watch we were promised whenever it was uncovered 6 months before release, where there was, I'm not sure, because I don't remember if it was actually like told by Apple or if it was rumors or supply chain or whatever, but they were like talking about an Apple Watch with like 12 different sensors in it, like for a bunch of stuff, and probably because of compliance and FCC not FCC, but the health regulation in the States, they were probably not able to add all the components they wanted because they were not certified or something. So this study with the AKG and also Mayo Clinic helped on this one, where now they have a 97% success rate or reliability rate. That probably opens the door for this little sensor to be better and to be recognized as something reliable. And we also have rumors about blood sugar tracking with the Apple Watch. So there's some rumor, I think it was from CNBC, that said that Tim Cook actually has a special version of his Apple Watch and tracks his blood sugar like that. So more sensors is always better. I really hope that this opens the door to some super duper Apple Watch with a bunch of more sensors for next year, or for next year. So that would make sense.
Also, the blood sugar one sensor would be huge for all the people having diabetes. Instead of having to like pinch yourself there to get a little sample of blood, to be able to read that daily, and just not daily, but like regularly throughout the day, it'd be huge.
Yeah, imagine if you could track your blood like every 15 minutes, and then you can map that with your actual like exercise, and you can pinpoint exactly what you're doing to lower your blood level, or your blood sugar level. So let's say that you're very high for some reason, and you know that if you take a speed walk, it's going to drop by 20%. Then, and you don't have any medication near you, you can just do that speed walk thing, because the Apple Watch told you that at this time when you did your speed walk, you dropped by 20%. Then you could do that as a mean of medication, self-medication if you want, to help with your levels. So yeah, that would be amazing. And for everybody with diabetes, it would be like an insta buy for sure. So
the only problem with all these health like sensors and all that it's really regulated, and the Apple Watch it's going to have to be super precise, and you can't like mess around with saying, hey, your heartbeat is going way off, but it's actually just malfunctioning. So I don't know how it works for the certifications and how like they regulate this, but I think it's pretty strict.
Yeah, but it sure is pretty strict. But I'm not sure that everything on the market right now that is approved and considered like reliable sensors are that precise. So having all this in a small Apple Watch, I think the size is the biggest problem. But yeah, it's definitely it's important, and they have to make sure that they get it right. But I'm not afraid that with the technology advancing and the sensors being more and more precise, being able to see through your skin, see in ultraviolet light, and see like all those kind of sensors, you can probably get something pretty accurate in the end. So
it might be in the band too. Like at the beginning when the Apple Watch came out, everybody was fussing about there's an access port kind of thing in the like where the bands stick in. So they might actually sell like separate bands to track more stuff, and let's just hope they stick a battery in there too, so because all these sensors are going to take up so much juice at the same time.
Yeah, but at first when they released the Apple Watch, there was a Kickstarter for a smart watch band with a battery included, and they were able to purchase an Apple Watch and test their prototype, and it was working. They were able to charge it via the band. But then after a couple of months, Apple pushed an update where they disabled the charging via the data port. And the whole Kickstarter basically just crashed. So sad for the guys who tried to be forward thinking with their bands. But Apple could leverage that for anything else. We know that they already have those smart connectors on iPads, and it would just be like a matter of shrinking them down and probably have a bunch of bands, or maybe bands add-on, depending on what they are and how big the device that they need to attach to the band is. You might be able to just tack something to your existing leather band and you could be good to go. So this week, we also had the news that the MP3 is dead. Can you realize this? This very old, 20 plus years old format that actually took like more than 1 day of processing on a 486 CPU to decode an MP3 I think it was in 1989 that they invented it. So they basically cranked out the technology and the algorithm to do that in a time where the computers were not able to process it at all. So if you wanted to decode an MP3 and listen to the music, it had to be decoded from MP3 to WAV, and not in real time. It took a whole day, and then you were able to play the WAV file. So that was when they invented that. And they basically said, let's just wait a couple of years, let's patent that, and in a couple of years, it should be good. So move forward a couple of years, maybe 5, 6, 7 years later, mid-90s, that's when the internet came out, and that's when the MP3 and Winamp and all that thing is basically among us, and we're able to actually listen to MP3s in real time. So the Fraunhofer Institute, which is the company that invented the MP3 and the patents and everything, actually said that the MP3 is now dead because their patents expired. Okay, that's kind of a weird statement to say. So I did look into that, and I was surprised to find that many websites just taking the news as it was given by Fraunhofer and basically just repeating it. So yes, the MP3 is dead. You should now use AAC. Since when does a expired patent means that your thing you were using is broken? I don't see movies disappearing when the Walt Disney patent expires. I don't see music stop to being listening to because Beethoven is dead for 300 years. Like, the fuck is that? And that's when I realized that people were like all messed up, and they were just rebroadcasting whatever Fraunhofer was promoting as the way to make more money, which is to move to the other codec, which is the AAC, which is still patented for a couple more years, and that's where they will be making their money now. So the MP3 now is not dead. Like I said, it's dead as a business plan for Fraunhofer. The link will be in the show notes for my article on HipsterPixel. But the MP3 itself is basically just reborn. It's like a phoenix. It's back from the dead, which was, well, he was never dead, but let's say that it's just like a Pokemon. He evolved into something even better. So now you can make software that encodes, decodes, that can process the MP3 technology inside your chips if you want. You can make like special chips just for that. With no licensing fee or agreement or whatever. You just do it and that's it. So just thinking about that, I can see first of all that Firefox, who was never able to use the MP3 because of the open source mentality that they don't use licensed software because they're against such thing. Now they could have the MP3 format in Firefox, and we could use it in our HTML5 audio tags everywhere with no problem. So yeah, for me, it's just the beginning of something even better. Because yes, you can always get better than the MP3 in terms of compression, in terms of quality, in the lower bit rates. But for podcasting, for music, for anything else, MP3 is still the way to go for me. I rest my case.
I think this is a really good example of just people taking this little bit of news and turning it into this big thing about saying, oh, MP3 is dead. That's not what he said. Nobody said that, but just now all the media is, they want the big headlines, the big clickbaits, and MP3 is dead is a good one. So that's what they went with, even though it has nothing to do with like this format of audio dying or anything. And it just shows like the internet in 2017, how it works.
Yeah, the more clicks, the more clickbait you can get. and of course, the more revenues you will make. So it's pretty sad that reporting on such important, for at least for us, news is being like deformed and
everything is breaking news. Everything is urgent, and everything is dying.
Yep, it's the end of everything all the time. So, when in this case, I think they could have probably spin that off like into MP3 is now alive, MP3 is just evolving or whatever, and could have probably got a couple more, or well, not more, but maybe a good amount of clicks, and in the end do like a good reporting job on the subject. But yeah, for us, it's all good. We might see new stuff. I'm even hoping, and it might even happen. It's not like so far-fetched that it could not happen, but like the MP3 format itself could be like catapulted into like a brand new era with many more tools, many more technologies. The MP3 format could evolve. They could also like make a new like version with more features, not necessarily in terms of algorithm, but maybe in terms of chapters. It could be like they could make new stuff, new type of chapters, and had this inside the format. Like anything can go. Like you can basically take this piece of technology and make it like evolve quite a lot. So talking about evolving, there was a leak a couple of months ago with transmission where the DMG file, the file you install on your Mac client, on your Mac desktop, was replaced by a infected version. So you had the very full app, but you also had some extra stuff in that little archive, which was a malware. The exact same thing happened with the Handbrake. So there was basically a Trojan horse installed inside the DMG file. So one of the two servers that ran that hosted the Handbrake file was infected, and they realized that only 3 days later or 4 days later. So if you ever downloaded Handbrake from the download.handbrake.fr server between May 2nd and May 6th, then you are most probably infected. So there is way to detect if you're infected. Links will be in the show notes to my article on HipsterPixel on how to detect your infection and how to clean it. But this is not just like, let's infect you and do nothing. This is basically a malware that scans for all your private keys, all your public keys, all your passwords and everything that is actually installed in your keychain, and uploads that to a distance server. So what is the point of all this? Well, we didn't know until very recently when Panic, the good friends at Panic Software, making very nice Apple-centric software, posted a little thing on their blog. Do you want to cover that?
So Steven at Panic, I forget, he's the founder, right? Or co-founders? One of the
probably co-founder.
He downloaded Handbrake, and it happened to be one of the versions with the malware. And to make it short, they got the source code of pretty much all the Panic apps. And I think they even went and did like this ransomware saying, hey, we have all the code for your app. Here's a little snippet. Pay us, or we're going to make all this app available to the internet. And if I read correctly, I think they just ignored it and said, hey, it's the source code for our app. All the user data is not compromised, nothing. Our web server isn't compromised. So just that's it. And that's how it works. And we're not paying anything.
Yeah. The bad thing in his case is that all his private keys were linked to the GitHub or whatever service they use for hosting their source code. And they were able to, well, a while back, one of their developers implemented like logging on everything. So if ever they had a leak or something, they could know exactly what was affected and stolen or copied or modified or whatever. And as soon as he saw that, he closed his laptop and he basically ran with the team and said, I'm infected, we need to do something. And they were able to stop the infection, if you want, and decommission the computer. And looking at the logs, they saw that the hacker had basically used his credentials to log into their source repository and stolen the apps. And like you said, he sent an email with a few lines of the code base, copy pasted, so that he can prove that he really has the source code on end, and he's asking for a significant amount of money in Bitcoins, which would, let me find the line exactly. The adjective that he used was demanding a large Bitcoin ransom to prevent the release of the source codes, which would suffocate our companies. So basically, it would be like such a big amount of money that it would be a problem for Panic, and also what tells them that he's gonna respect his word. Like, he could also release it and keep the money. So they basically said, if that, we're just gonna ignore this guy. And yes, if you want to hack those apps, they already have a bunch of cracked version on the internet. Please buy the apps, but you could do it, and some of them already have the malwares installed. So that's why you should never download apps from BitTorrent and stuff, because yes, they are the full version of your lovely apps, but they are sometimes more than that. They also have malware in them. I think the most popular one was like basically Windows 7 or Windows XP, which is how we now have armies of millions of computers that are part of a botnet, because people with lower income or companies with no real knowledge of how things works basically installed a pirated copy of Windows XP on thousands of computers, or even millions, and then all those little files, all those little Windows XP archives had malware in them, and all those computers are not part of a botnet network. So yeah, so back to Panic. Basically, they're on the phone with Apple and the FBI, so they are doing everything they can to help the investigation, but right off the bat, nothing is changed for any of us, meaning that if you already are a Panic customer, there's nothing to fear. Your data is safe. They really pinpointed exactly what was stolen and shared that with the law enforcement agencies. So basically the worst that could happen with the handbrake malware thing happened to this company. It's probably not the only one. These guys are super smart, so they were able to realize it quickly, and they were able to stop the hemorrhaging of the problem right away. So that's good for them. There are so many companies that also this happened, but they have no clue that it happened, and they probably will only realize it once they get this little email with the source code saying, "We got your source code, pay us, or we're going to release it in the wild." So yeah, malware problems, that's not cool. Moving on quickly to WannaCrypt, still in the security problems malware thingy. You probably heard that because it went everywhere last week and the week before. WannaCrypt is a malware that is self-replicating across networks, so that you don't need to open a file to actually get infected. It's piggybacking on a security breach on the SMB network protocol. So if you're on a computer that is infected, it can infect anybody else in the network, and then it can move across companies, network shares, like that. So basically what this one does is that it basically encrypts your files and asks you for $300 in less than 3 days. If you wait for more than 3 days, it becomes $600. And then after 6 days, all your files are irrecoverable. So they're basically, I think the hacker will probably just not give you the key to decrypt them. So this little thingy goes and does its job in a few minutes, and all your files are encrypted. So for regular geeks like us, it's a pain. If you have backups, you can restore. But where it really was a problem was because this affected hospitals. This canceled surgeries that were required for patients. All the patients' records were encrypted. So there were many companies and many hospitals, especially in the UK, that were not targeted, because it's not a targeted attack, but it's basically they were infected, and I think they suffered more from that. Okay, so where does this from? Basically, a few months ago, we saw a release of the CIA's tools for hacking people and computers. This is basically a security breach that was discovered by some CIA agents, and they were using it to hack into people's computer. And basically, now that this is public, that those security breaches are public, Microsoft ran and patched it on March 14th on all versions of Windows except Windows 10, which was not affected. And even Windows XP, which is not supported anymore, doesn't receive any security fixes. Microsoft did a special exception for this case, and they actually released an update for XP. But the problem is that it was patched on March 14th, and all this happened around early May. It's less than 2 months after, and people were not fast enough on the update cycles to do their updates. Companies have problems doing the updates because of compatibility with their software. Sometimes sometimes they have like software relying on IE6 and some very specific ActiveX plugin, and they cannot do the update, or they don't want to do the update because they know it's going to break. So they sweep it under the rug for a couple of years, and eventually they do the update. But in this case, they got bitten, and they had big problems because the updates were not done. So if you have your computer that runs Windows and you leave it do the update automatically every time they have an update or the next day, you're safe, you're fine, no problem. If you disable the Windows update, then you could have a big problem. If ever you are affected, there's a way for you to fix your stuff. If you saw the WannaCrypt message and you did not reboot since, there's a tool that some cybersecurity researchers found related to prime numbers and memory and stuff. So they did a tool that they can scan the some part of memory and hopefully retrieve the encryption key automatically from your computer. So if you are infected, have not restarted the computer yet, you should look in the show notes. There's a link to an Engadget post explaining the solution. So that's good.
So this week, right?
Yep.
Manton Reese and Brent Simmons, they announced this new alternative to RSS feeds, and it's basically JSONFeed. It's the same principle as RSS, but instead of being XML, it's JSON, which is a lot simpler to read, a lot simpler to write as developers. And it's just this new standard. They released a spec, so these are the required fields, and that's pretty much it. A bunch of people are starting to implement it. I know this site called Hipster Pixel that uses it now. It's a cool site. Yeah, so I think you did it. It's pretty simple, right?
Yeah, when this was released, I said finally something like that, because I thought of that idea a while back, but I didn't know like how to do it, or I didn't have like the network in terms of developers to do something like that and get it adopted. So these guys did it. So I said, okay, fine. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and I'm going to help them with that thing. So what I basically did is I created a very small JSON feed, not plugin, but like a template for Jekyll, the CMS we're using for Hipster Pixel. And basically, they even linked it into their code section. And I already know about 2 or 3 people who implemented it and said thanks via Twitter. So yeah, it's a new, like you said, it's a new feed, a new format of feed. Very simple to implement, very simple to parse, which is also, I think, the biggest thing. Eventually apps will be able to implement that. So for Hipster Pixel, if you look at our headers, we have our social networks, and at the far right, we had the RSS icon. Well, we now have the JSONFeed icon there too. So everything is there. There's also, let me find that. Maxime Vaillancourt from Sherbrooke, he did something. Yeah, so Maxime Vaillancourt basically did a JSONFeed viewer. He hosted it on Heroku. Links will be in the show notes. You can basically use your JSONFeed URL, and it's going to parse it and show you the content. So it's kind of like a JSONFeed reader if you want, and you can use it to validate see if your JSON feed structure is okay or if it's broken or whatever. And so that works super fine. I'm going to put the links in the show notes right now so I don't forget it.
It's very open source. It's all on GitHub, so you can fork it and then submit pull requests if you want to make changes.
Yeah, exactly. So if I just do it right now, there's a bug. I have to send him the information. But yeah, once you put your feed in there, you have, like, for this case, this example for Psipixel, I can see the latest post, which is the MP3 is dead as a business plan post I'd written with my pretty nice Winamp screenshots from the 1990s. So yeah, it's pretty bare bones, but it works. And I think he said he did that like in an hour or something. So yeah, great job from Maxime Vaillancourt. Links in the show notes. So implement that feed format on all your websites. There's already a WordPress plugin. There's even a Swift parsing library. There's a Go package. There's a MyJekyll feed template, and there's also another one with attachments. I also added attachment to mine since that, so you can also use mine for that if you have like podcast files. And even John Gruber of Daring Fireball fame, he basically did the movable type template, and he also did an escape for JSON library so that your content could be escaped properly and not have weird characters that breaks the structure. And there's also a Rust library. So basically, there's a bunch of cool tools already in place, and you can add more if you want. I accept pull requests if you want to do changes to my library. All other developers probably do the same. So yeah, be wild, make changes, share the love.
Also, this is all nice, but for it to be like adopted, everybody has to adopt it for it to make it the new standard. That's going to be the hardest part, I think, to trump RSS if you want.
Yeah, that's why you need people like us to make code for different platforms. They already have WordPress covered. It's the major CMS in place right now, so that's good. I did the Jekyll one. There's a Go library, but I don't think there's a Yugo plugin yet. What else is there in terms of platforms? Trying to think like other CMSs, probably
Drupal
Drupal need one, Magento need one. Are there other CMS for blogs and stuff like that?
There's a bunch of CMSs.
Yeah, but like the major ones, like WordPress, with a couple. Yeah, WordPress is done.
Yeah, but when it's done.
Yeah, so they probably cover like 70% of the market with this one. So yeah, share it. If you have friends who have blogs, tell them to install the JSONFeed plugin on their WordPress
or else
blog.
You won't read their blog anymore.
Yeah, that's how it works. Tell them that XML is dead and that the JSONFeed is a new thing.
XML is dead. You can't use it no more.
No more. All right, so that's a cool thing about JSONFeed. Our friend Federico Vitici released another video this year. I was hoping for a new one because he did last year with iOS 10 wish list, and he was pretty amazing. Like, he has great ideas. The guy knows his and he partnered with I always forget his name. I know it's Beckett. Sam Bennett or Beckett.
Now you make me doubt. I don't know.
Yeah.
Continue. I'll find it.
Okay, yeah. So Sam Beckett, yeah. So basically, he has the idea. The guy makes nice animations, and he's a designer. So they basically created drag and drop features and a shelf feature for iOS 11. They just imagine what iOS 11 could bring to the table in terms of new features for pro users, for any users basically. And they basically made a nice video about this, and they shared it on the internet. And right now, just for fun, it already has more than 130,000 views on YouTube. So that's pretty nice. I'm sorry. I'm hoping that it gets more traction than that, because the guys have done an amazing job, and it's really something you should look into. It's nice ideas. They pushed boundaries much further than anything we've seen recently on iOS. since iOS 7 there were changes, but only like 1.0 changes, and then once that feature was implemented, it was barely touched for the following years. One of the worst thing that you can see is that you can drag the right side in to get like a scrollable list of apps. It was fine when you had like 3 apps who could do like side by side views, but like split view. But now you have like hundreds of apps, and that makes no sense. Like, this UI is not made for more than a couple of apps. So it was not like thought of and corrected in the coming years. This demo that they did is amazing because it takes that and it fixes the problems, and it implements like a new drawer thing and like a bunch of other ideas. So yeah, watch it.
It's really nice. Let's hope iOS 11 for iPad looks like this.
Oh yeah, well, it's a bit too late for that. We already are in May, and I don't think they could implement that kind of thing in 2 months.
No, we're going to know in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, but do you really think that whatever Vitici thought of is exactly what Apple wanted to do? And
let's hope he had little birdies inside Apple telling him what to do. But I'd be really surprised.
Yeah, me too. I'd be super surprised. But yeah, let's hope for the best. That's what you always have to think. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. So, yeah. One small piece of news. Every quarter, Backblaze, the famous backup company, releases hard drive stats. So they basically are big enough that they can purchase thousands and thousands of hard drives. And they basically track every time a drive fails and gets replaced. What's the model, manufacturer, number of days they ran, number of failures, and then they have an annualized failure rate. And basically, if you're looking to buy some hard drives for your NAS or just for your big honking computer, you can look at these and basically see that, for example, the Seagate ST4000DX00, which is a 4 terabyte drive, has a failure rate of 35%. Whereas, for example, let's take one that has a lot of data. The like the HGST 3 terabytes, they have 4,000 of those, and they have a 0.95% of failure. So basically, they only have 10 drives that failed out of 4,000, whereas they had 170 Seagate 4 terabytes drive, and 15 of those failed. So it's pretty intense. So yeah, just by those numbers, you can download them in the shape of a Excel spreadsheet or comma delimited file if you prefer, and you can crunch the numbers by yourself and see exactly what size and capacity are more reliable. And yeah, it's such a great tool to know exactly what's going to happen with hard drives if you buy this or this model.
Yeah, the gist of the story is don't buy the Seagate 4 terabytes.
Yeah, no, they have a bunch of those, and they even have like many years. Like they have an annualized failure rate from April 2013 to 2017, and yeah, some of those like the Seagates, overall they have like 10% failure rates, where there are other models that have 0.8, 1.7. So I heard you have a question from one of our listeners.
Yeah, so it's the same listener that has the Alcantara seats, Tristan.
Shout out to Tristan.
He had a problem. Well, his parents have a problem. Well, it's a problem, but I call it like it's a good problem to have. Well, they basically during the summer they're often on their boat, but his mom needs access to a bunch of client files that are all hosted on her home computer, and while they're on the boat, they have limited like LTE network, but she still needs to download a lot of pictures, usually like big media files that she needs to access on the boat.
So it's read-only from home, if possible. Yes. So if there's no connectivity and like satellite internet is not an option, because I don't know how fast it is nowadays or how expensive it is. It's
more of the expensive part.
Okay, yeah, because it's probably very, very specific and
especially since it's in the United States and they live in Canada, so.
Okay. Yeah, so that's out of the question. So the only thing I would think is make a offline backup you bring with you. And if you really need to access photos or media files, so yeah, if you ever drop your hard drive in the ocean, then you can resort back to LTE, which would be like the failback plan, which would be more expensive and problematic. But I think that the easiest way would be to probably like clone some directories from the home computer / NAS or whatever to a hard drive, or 2 hard drives if you want to be like planning
Redundant.
for the worst. Yeah, redundant. Like 1 is 0 and 2 is 1. So yeah, that's the best I would say. There are probably softwares that you can use to say that, okay, copy these folders to my hard drive, depending on how the data is structured. If it's pretty clean, then it's not hard. You can just drag and drop the folders on the hard drive. I would probably, depending on the size, I would probably like use maybe one, maybe like one of those Lassie orange rubbery hard drive, because they are,
Lassie. I'll get the name.
yeah, the Lassie one are usually like rugged and they're pretty nice, but they're still a spinning disk. And if the data is not too large, probably like go also with a SSD version, which is probably more resistant to impacts. If ever the Lassie one fails, you can always revert back to the SSD one. So an SSD that is not that big, let's say like a 100, 200 gigabytes, could probably be in the $100, $250, and get a case for that. There's a bunch of enclosures you can get. Some of them also are rubberized, so they also have like rubber and everything. So maybe for under, I would say under $400, you can have 2 hard drives with probably sufficient space. Of course, we don't know exactly the details of how much data they need, but that's something that could also be looked into.
I think it's like over 100 gigs.
Still, it fits on an SSD that is still affordable. You don't need like the top of the line super mega fast read and write, because you probably don't have like a Thunderbolt 3 laptop. And even if you do, if you reach 300 megs per second, I think you're fine. Like, you don't need those Samsung super fast $1,000 plus SSD with like 8 gigs per second of read write. So yeah.
The first thing I do though is like get a copy of all those files, because now they're just sitting on her iMac. So get a NAS or just back them up somewhere, please. And then for because the way she works is all these files are on her iMac, and then she has a MacBook Adorable, I think, or like the MacBook One, to go on the road or on the boat. And the problem is she's always transferring stuff onto a USB drive right now, and then she forgot stuff that was supposed to be on the USB drive, but it's still at home, and then she's stuck. So that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, so like you said, first thing, backups. A NAS would be great if you want to offset all the data to that network storage. But like Backblaze, if she wants to keep the data on her computer, that's fine. If ever there's a big crash, you can like FedEx a drive from Backblaze quickly to your house and get your data back. So that's the best. So $5 per month. They're not a sponsor, but I wish they were. We mentioned them quite a few times over the last 50 episodes. So yeah, backup first, and then, like I said, if the data is nicely and sorted out, you just use your external hard drives as like dumping zone, if you want, drop zone, where you just copy the whole thing to that, and the next time you're back home and you have new photos or whatever, you just erase the drive and do it again. So it's a bit cumbersome, but I think it's the most reliable and fast way. Having 2 drive, 1 SSD, 1 HDD give you sufficient capacity and also redundancy when you're on the go, and it's also usually much faster than some thumb drive you can get. Thumb drives tend to break eventually for no apparent reason, just because. And also, there again, you can also get like some specialized thumb drives, but then you get into the very ruggedized and very like military grade kind of thing, and then it's encryption, and then it's getting like expensive fast, and you can probably get like a 32 gigs thumb drive for like $100. So it makes no sense. Like go to the hard drive route, and that would be much better.
Yeah, because I don't see a way to from the boat to access her files from home because LTE is too expensive.
Yeah, makes no sense. If it's not LTE and it's not a satellite, then there's no solution for that.
I think the best bet, it might be an SSD, so it's going to be faster to transfer on to her like external hard drive from her computer. So that's going to like reduce the amount of time she's just waiting for it to transfer on the hard drive before leaving and all that. And that's the only thing I can think of. And backup.
Yeah, backup many times. And the HDD would be like the slower like backup solution when on the boat if ever the SSD fails or whatever. So yeah, I think that's the best thing she can do right now. So for Apps Corner this week, only one single little app. I didn't went on the internet and looked far and deep for many things this week. We already have quite a long show. So basically, if you ever were a fan of the split keyboard on iPads, that was there until iOS 10, I would say. Basically, it's now gone and people are missing that little keyboard. So it's the keyboard that when you were basically holding your iPads, let's say sideways, for example, in landscape mode, you would have very small keyboard on the left and right hand side of the screen. So you could thumb type your way around without needing to like stretch your thumb to the middle to get the J or the F letter. Basically, Handy Keyboard is a solution you can get right now. It's a split keyboard for the iPad Pro 12.9 inch. I think it also works for the smaller iPad Pro, but basically it's the split screen keyboard that you loved in the past with a bunch of little features and setups and language support and everything. So you have the black and white theme, so you can have the one that you prefer. And yeah, so it's that, like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's a split keyboard that works on the iPad Pro. So for this big hunkin iPad, you can just thumb type your way through, and that's perfect.
I have my app too, my app corner of the week, app submission.
Okay, go. It's not in the show notes, but I will.
Yeah, it's in the show notes right now. Do you see it?
No.
Okay, but first, the Handy Keyboard is really cool. I really like the split keyboard on the iPad. I'm sad it's gone, and I really use this one, so I'll try it. The app I had it's not a hot dog app. It's the app from, I don't know if you watch Silicon Valley. If you don't, you should. It's like this geek Silicon Valley startup show. It's an HBO show, 30-minute show. It plays on Sundays. I think they're up to the 4th season. Well, they were making an app last week on the show, and they actually released it on the App Store. So that and it really works. So that's cool.
Yeah, Jin Yan is the best.
Yeah, it says it's a camera app, and you take a picture of some things, and it tells you if it's a hot dog or not. It's really useless, but I just find it funny that the show on TV actually released and made the app that they're talking about in the show.
Yeah, they pushed their jokes pretty far. They had like Pied Piper's websites in the past. They also have like social media accounts, and they in the show itself, starting from last season, they started to have people from Bloomberg TV like interviewing the actors in their roles. So like to like increase, if you want, the reach or the reality side of things. And now for this thing, they really did put out an app on the App Store, and it really is like it's a hot dog, not a hot dog. So it's just so really funny. Cool. Yeah, I really love it. And I heard that while doing the screening of the show, of the series, to specific high profile Silicon Valley people, they also included in that so they one of the people that was in the room for that screening was Ryan Hoover, the founder of Product Hunt, and he was basically like kept, if you want, aside after that to discuss a secret project. And they basically submitted the Not a Hot Dog app to Product Hunt, and it got the Jinyan also commented as the maker of the app on Product Hunt. So like they did like a full circle of if this was really a real thing. And he said, "What would you say if I told you there is an app on the market that tells you if you have a hot dog or not a hot dog? It is very good, and I don't want to work on it anymore. You can hire someone else."
It's exactly like in the show.
Yeah, and it's a 580 upvote, and it's the most upvoted comment on Product Hunt at the moment. So, and the app itself, the submission has more than 2,200 upvotes. And I realized I didn't upvote it, so I just did. So yeah, it's a good joke. It's a working joke. That's the most impressive thing, and it works. Yeah.
So that's it for this week. It's the end of the big 5-0 episode. You can find the show notes at rgba.fm/50 for 50. You can also find us on Twitter at _rgba.fm. You can find Alex on Twitter at Valliere, VALLIERES. And you can find me at Tyler Menard, TYLERMENARD. So have a nice week.
Have a nice week.